There was never any doubt that I knew where it was and I had one that I could use. So I want to kick off quickly. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for making time in your days. I know it's difficult to sneak away from client to make time for these things, but it's always really amazing to see everybody connecting together and, you know, new faces meeting some older faces and making new connections across clients. This is really important. We haven't had one of these since May. It's kind of lame. But in all fairness, we were busy with the convergence and the comms and all the other great things that we've been doing that I hope you're all participating in and enjoying and loving. Thanks for coming, Clint. Oh, Josh, you were here, okay. You're lucky. Oh, is there more? Okay. So I'm just doing the thanks. So thanks for coming, Clint. Thanks for making time. Stepping away from clients is difficult. Hello, thank you for making time to be here. It's good to see your faces. Everyone. Yeah, no, I changed that. I said it needs to be now because we've got a little bit of time. And I still want time to connect with you all afterwards. So I want to finish on time at 4:30. So I'm just going to run you through the agenda quickly. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, so we've connected and now we're welcoming each other, and that's amazing. First up, Sarah's going to come and talk to us. For those of you who don't know, Sarah is one of our senior designers. She's been at Standard Bank for quite some time now. She's DL. She does a lot of amazing, cool things. She's going to take us through, you know, some of her lessons in her journey to getting a whole new product out into the marketplace and what that looks like, and then what happens when it's out there. And then we've got Stefan, who I'm sure most of you would also probably know, but if not, Stefan is at NetBank. He's also one of our super talented, amazing visual designers, coming to share with us a little bit around design systems, the problems that they're finding in the space that they're in, how they're solving those problems, and how it's being consumed and the importance of design systems and all of those good things. And then because this month we received quite a number of design nominations for the Salute to the Values. In fact, all of the nominations this month were designers. Yes! true to the values in this session today, and then the next one will be at our next convergence as well. So this is my first reminder to remind you to nominate people. I'm going to give you about 17 more throughout the session. This is just number 1. Sarah, I'm going to ask you if you can ready to come up. Let's clap for Sarah and make her feel welcome. There you go, doll.
Should we wait till the end?
No. Clap first and then after. No, like clapping, yay. Thanks for being one of the humans who volunteered to talk. Yay!
Lauren asked. No, sorry.
Sorry, Ben.
Okay. Cool. Is this mic working?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
Sounds very soft.
it is, yes.
Can you hear me, everybody? Okay, good. Yes, good.
Great.
No, waiting. Lauren, what did you do?
I did nothing. I did nothing. Oh my gosh. Try the report. Maybe you've got like a gammy.
The nice thing about Max is it's working.
Yeah.
It's like meant to be working, right?
Yes, it should be working.
Okay, please hold. Your call is important to us. Yes. Too hard?
Yeah. Don't touch the cake.
Time for my alarm. Okay, let's go.
Okay. Hi guys. Hi everyone. Thank you very much for my introduction, Lauren. And thank you for having me here to speak today. I am, as Lauren said, a designer for Freethinking, and I have been based at Standard Bank for a very, very long time. But nonetheless, that was my client. So today I would. Guys.
No, they need to get us an alarm.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going
to go do that. Enter everyone! Yay! No way, you just get yay! That one's just So you're still Sarah?
I'm still Sarah.
You're still a designer. Let's go.
I'm still standing here. So. Okay, cool. Right. So today I've come to chat to you about shipping a product and how it is not the final destination. This is based on a very true, very real story of how me and my team got an app into the wild. We're fine.
Now we've got it.
Okay, thanks, yeah.
Hey, that was good.
Okay, and go.
And go. Okay, sure, it's exhausting. Okay.
Very good, Sarah.
Yeah. So just to give you a bit of background on the product, the product we designed was an app that would be for person A. This was the group that we identified, the user group for this, and product B, person B is for the second group that we identified for it. The web view would allow person B to interact with person A and improve the communication. So this was the theory behind the product. So the timeline looked something like this. It started in 2015, round about this time of the year. Carried on into 2016, carried on into 2017, and we launched in 2018. We launched about 2 months ago, I think it was, about 2 months ago. And yeah, so this is the time period that we're looking at for the scene, for the story that I'm telling you. So at any one time, we have had 2 design leads and 5 different product designers working on this product, both the web and the app view. The app is a universal app, by the way, so it's tablet and phone. And of those team members, one of them made a baby, had a baby, came back. The other product designer made a baby, had a baby, came back. They're both here today, by the way. And there were 2 product designers, one who immigrated to Qatar and one who immigrated to Dubai.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting.
Did you get to replace them? Did you just go from having 5 to 3?
I think we replaced, we added one. So, in the beginning, the team looked a bit like this.
Yay!
So generally, the energy was quite high. We started off pretty excited and inspired and energetic. And we've been given the opportunity to work on a new and interesting piece of work. So yes, we were very happy at this point. We needed a plan. So this was our plan. We are there on the bike. And we needed to get there by the flag, which is the finish line. And there was a slight hill on that, but like, it wasn't really that bad, but a straight line generally. So this was the design schedule that we put in place, which would give us an idea of what we would do and when we would do it. We also needed a process to execute the plan. So we needed to go from point A to point B. It seemed so simple. So this was the design process that we made use of was a lean UX process. And we had a lot of team collaboration along the way. So we had a lot of development involvement. We tried to involve our design, development, and product as much as possible. We had weekly sessions where we were showing our stuff. So yes, that was part of the process for us. And off we went. I love it. I could stand here all day. Moving on. So, remember the plan I told you about?
The simple plan.
This was the reality. So the first challenge that we encountered along the way was the winter wasteland of requirements and customer access. It was a cold and barren place. We scrounged around, picking up anything we could find in our path to formulate our requirements and create our ad hoc personas. There wasn't a customer in sight for miles around. We looked around to see how others had gone before us. We emerged from the wasteland with story maps and user flows in our backpacks, ready to face the next challenge. The shark-infested depths of defective services. We discovered constraints on the back end. They will not make it easy for us to get to the other side of an intuitive and well-designed experience for our customers. At this point, I feel it's important to provide an example to give context. Okay, so I mentioned person A and person B at the beginning of my presentation. Person A downloads the app, but can't use it until person B enables him. This is due to a tie on the back end between person A and person B. We could not change it. So person A is entirely reliant upon person B. Person B, who I like to call the enabler, may be on holiday or playing golf or at the gym. I think you get my point. So without having that person B to enable person A, there was no way for them to use the app at all. They couldn't even log in. So how did we solve this? We understood that this was less than ideal, clearly. We were bleak. And we made our concerns known. We could not change it though, so we had to work with what we had available to us, understanding that the solution could be more elegant in the future. And this was when, when we discussed this, we were promised that the tie between person A and person B would be fixed at a later stage. Yeah. So we quickly paddled our way through the waters and climbed out the other side. Straight into the new style guide Inferno. The detailed designs were in process at this point. We focused on the bigger picture here. The style guide we'd been using up until this point would not make it through the flames and into a collaborative space on the other side. We understood the need for consistency and how this transformation would benefit us. We left the ashes behind. This was a painful experience, but we understood that it was for the greater good. Next was the vortex of validation. It's incredibly frustrating to be creating a product for a customer that we've never met. We hoped we would learn more from the analytics. We were sucked down into the vortex, spinning around and around. We continued to fight for our cause, and just as we began to lose hope and run out of steam, we emerged the vortex successful. Analytics were finally implemented into the app. And then we launched. This is how it felt. After a very, very long journey, very long. There was mixed emotions. It felt like we'd run a marathon. It was important for us to stand back and appreciate what we'd achieved. We'd forged through some very difficult obstacles. And just when we thought we'd reached the finish line, there was more. The garbage dating grizzly bear appeared. And so we jumped on the bear. At first, we were tossed around from left to right, finding incorrect balances here and missing customer data there, and we clung on for dear life. As time passed and many fixes were made, also many customer problems, the grizzly bear slowly calmed down. We're still riding this bear to this day, and it's getting a whole lot easier. Perseverance and patience are the name of the game. So what have we learned? We've learned that this journey is ongoing. I can assure you that these challenges don't disappear disappear once the product has been shipped. The nature of the landscape that we're working is challenging. There is legacy and there are constraints. It's our job to navigate our way through them. Hindsight is some of the best insight. What can we understand from the outset that can help us further down the line? In our case, if we'd understood a whole lot more about the customer data up front, we would have saved a mountain of time. One of the most beautiful parts of what we do is the ability to continuously improve on our work and the experience for the customer. We should never launch a product and leave it. Something we've learned from experience as well. So looking out at all of you today, I understand that you're all in different phases and stages in the shipping process at whichever client that you are based at the moment. So wherever you are and whatever you're going through, keep pushing on. There's always a way to move forward. And I'll finish off with a quote that I really like by a guy named Ryan Holiday. As the Haitian proverb puts it, behind mountains are more mountains. Elysium, which by the way means a place or state of perfect happiness, is a myth. One does not overcome one obstacle only to enter the land of no obstacles. The obstacle in the path becomes the path. Never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition. Thank you.
Skip on the back. Next. Thank you, Sarah. That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us. Love all your gifts. Me too. Stole the show. Stole the show. Hopefully this is less painful.
Okay, you guys are going to have to excuse me for the first bit. I didn't want to swap the screens between screens, so I've actually got my speech on my emails and my draft. I don't have as many emojis, but hopefully it should be fairly entertaining. I don't know. Okay. I'm Stefan. I'm a designer at NetBank. For Freethinking, of course. Yeah, let me start. As we're all aware, design systems are increasing in popularity, but the idea of a design system is not a new one. Modular software solutions have been around since the 1960s. I feel like there's been a lack of understanding of what a design system is supposed to be. If you had to ask me, I would describe a design system in one sentence. A design system's purpose is to achieve the ability to operate at scale with greater speed and consistency. I started at NetBank 8 months ago. I had a fairly good idea of how we would want to approach things. But as soon as we started, there was a lot of hesitation from the corporate culture. Asking for a clean start was like a big no-no. Our task was to visually improve what already existed, without addressing the actual problems. Basically, we were stuck polishing a turd. Most things started engraved in stone. The smallest change needed a rational the size of an annual report. However, that did not stop us from wanting to build a new product worth using. I started designing for what I thought would be the ideal representation of the design system for NetBank. Jock decided he was not going to sleep anymore, and Wesley was just too grateful to build a half-decent looking product. I think at the time we kept telling ourselves that if we build it, they will see the value. We would eventually win them over and they would need to push forward what we've built. If not, well, we didn't kind of think that fight needed to work. Keeping motivation was difficult at times. We would ask ourselves a lot why. Clearly people had no intention of using the design system. We had to deal with a lot of opinions. Now don't get me wrong, opinions are good, but you'll be shocked at what people perceive the design system to be. Everything that the culture of non-delivery didn't want to do was expected to be dumped into the design system with a fully fleshed out solution. Our goal was basically strip out and simplify, not overcomplicate or overstate. It took a while, but about 4 months ago, we got the go-ahead to make version 2 live. I would like to share with you some of the highlights and improvements we've made and give you guys some insight into how the design system is being consumed. although this is very, very early stages, I think we've come quite a far way. I do feel, and then of course the best part, like I want to say, is like everyone that took initiative on this project during that time was all free thinkers. So I'm going to take you through the presentation that we had then, and I'll do a demo in between. So at the time, like I have to explain, there was like 2 websites, one for developers and one for the designers, and like the 2 was completely isolated. Like they were thinking one thing starts, one thing ends, and like they didn't like take into account that, you know, designers need to be aware of how the developers use it, and developers need to be aware of like all the design rules and stuff. So there was a big disconnect. Enhancements that we had on the site, I'm going to quickly take you through this and I'll show you. So firstly, brought the website together. We looked at all the hierarchy and stuff, like put together proper structures so that content was just all over the place. There was no index, or there was no like pages to like really make sense of things before the time, and I think we were lacking quite a bit of the stuff that really had to help. While we were doing this and making the site, one, we had the ability to actually put in actual code examples, so we no longer have to put in static images and stuff to show people what we're talking about. So that improved quite drastically, and also that helped with the fact that there was a big maintenance part. We couldn't push up new documentation all the time, because every time we made a small change, we had to go back into design the thing, export an image, put all the annotations and measurements on it, put it back into the system. So there was a lot of like work involved every time for that. Of course, we rewrote a lot of the content, hence Jock not sleeping. We made sure that the entire thing was working on mobile this time. I don't know what happened the first time, like somehow we didn't have that. We brought in adaptive search, which I'll take you guys through now, which is quite nice. We had an issue where like people couldn't find something like a drop down. But of course, we were trying to, you know, work from a developer point of view, and like in development, we call it a select box. So if someone typed in Dropbox, we wanted them to like actually find the select box without that confusion. So there was a few things worked in. Ronnie, of course, rebuilt the entire Sketch library, which we're rebuilding now again with the new version of Sketch. Then we introduced this thing called the Resource Center, which was basically to dump all those things we were talking about earlier, like all the things that didn't quite fit into the design system, you needed a place to live. So we set up a Dropbox folder and placed everything there, which is password protected, and then I'll take you through templates and user flows as well now. Okay, so Sketch templates. So our first problem to solve was misalignment. Like people were using different navigations, they were using different glyphs and stuff, and we just couldn't get everyone to like, if you literally went from one page to another and just jumped. So I'm quickly gonna just show what process we went through with that. So we had to go and map out and make sure everyone was on board with it. So all our breakpoints and stuff, and then go design our grids and make sure that it works on every single screen. Now, of course, during this, there was already a lot of products out there, so we had to go and like ask everyone if they were okay with us actually implementing these grids. I think we got to a stage like, and everyone is on this now, or most of them. Check here. Then, other templates we started building, actually got the Dropbox folder here as well. We started building stuff for everything that was repetitive in forms. We're using a stepper, so like we made a template for that thing. Terms and conditions, like there's even more ones out now, like things for like, you know, when you have to type in your OTP and like there's everything to be consumed. Recycled screens that people can just go down at the thing, start using it from there. Then user flows. This is something we try to introduce with, especially in our form-related stuff, where we would have the user would start a journey, and it can be something quite simple, but if they have to break off into something a little bit more complicated, we weren't sure like everyone was following the same pattern. So Jog started putting together these lovely user flows, which I then designed afterwards again for him, where we would like guide them through. And then we needed a way to put these into the design system as well, which I'll show now. So the end result was something a little bit more clean. I actually don't have an image of version 1 on here. But we used to have like a landing page, entry point and stuff. now you just land on the site. There's two options, either you're a designer or developer. You follow these steps, we tell you how to get started. And then for people that might not be that familiar with Sketch and stuff, we started just putting in some very, very basic things for them to start using. Started breaking down a lot of rules and stuff that was repetitive that we use over everything. And then these are the two parts that I think most of you are familiar with. Most design systems consist of a style section and a component section. So on here, we started documenting the grids, understanding, telling them exactly how to use it, gave them some reference tables and stuff to see how to apply the columns, how paddings and stuff change. But of course, there was the templates to give that to them as well. A big issue we had while trying to do all of this is on a component level, people wanted to have actual spacings, but where the problem came in is you can place a button in relationship to another component, and there is multiple ways of putting something together. So if I had to go tell you, listen, there is 20 pixels padding underneath this button, and then you apply it on the next thing, there's 20 pixels padding, I would have to I don't know how many examples I would have had to put in here to explain how to actually apply that. So after long sitting, me and Jock decided that we're rather going to break it down, give them three building blocks to work with, which I thought was simple enough, and then rather explain something like relationships and hierarchy, which I think at the end of the day, it's slowly starting to work, but we're still trying to get people on board with that. But it will be it's a lot easier than trying to document every single component. Then I'm just quickly going to go through these pages just so you guys can get an idea of how it looks. So color guidelines and stuff. These of course we implemented little small nice things, you can click on them, they copy the Xcodes out for you to use. I'm actually going to skip over that. That's not done. Iconography we're totally redoing, and we audited our entire icon library, every single icon that's being used, and now we're rebuilding our own to move away from our licenses and stuff. So these are all being consumed through the Sketch library, not separate as a font at the moment, but for the developers we are actually giving them a font instead of them having to go and export each icon individually one by one. Then some simple logo guidelines, and then these are we're busy writing out. So that user flow I just showed you previously, those ones we wanted to include in here, so we just broke these down a little bit simpler, got our overview sections and stuff in here, and then we just annotated these out, so we didn't have to add that whole big entire user flow in here. So we have sections breaking down, all those steps we just follow linearly down on this page. Templates, all of those templates that I showed you, there's a place for them to be downloaded. Download places here. We are looking at doing an overview page to give you a visual representation of all the icons that we have, not icons, templates that we have. So here you'll see there's an idea of as we're putting them out. Then, quickly go back here. This is once I went through component pages. So the idea of the component pages was, this is one we probably spent the most time on because we had to redo all of them, was people were going through the pages, and I think actually it was Kim Ballis that brought this up, that if you go into a page, there's no visual representation of the component, and also because we don't have an overview, there's no easy way to see what you're actually looking at, because some of these names are quite, they're quite agnostic in a sense. So something like the drop-down, for instance, because it's being called a select box, if you don't know what it's actually called, you're going to be struggling to actually find out what it is. So it all looks very simple now, but before the time, there was different ways about all of these started. So every single component, choose something like a checkbox, has a component that actually pulls in on top that you can interact with. Then we break down the sections for them to understand, also this is consistent right throughout. So every time you land on a component page, you know there will be an overview, placement, states, and some of them will have 1 or 2 extra sections. We discussed that through, we decided on a little thing called anatomy, just to explain the different parts, just to get a little bit of more like a global language going, so that people actually know what we're talking about. It's stuff for like a group label instead of just a label. You'll be surprised how simple that seems, but it can get quite tricky sometimes. Placement, we did all of these, gave them, this is what I was talking about micro, like checking spaces between things. For these is okay, but there is some instances where it's just impossible to go and show everything. And then of course all of these states on these. So currently I think we're running at about just over 20 components. All of these are on the sketch library and of course over there. A lot of things in here. I'm quickly going to show you guys. So if you're in the sketch library, we simplified these. I don't know if there's going to be, yeah, you can read it. So we broke all of these down in there. They're very simple to like navigate everything there. And then of course that resource center I was talking about. So that's where all the rest of the stuff, like organizational stuff, and if you click on this, it would literally just take you to a Dropbox folder, which is password protected. Okay. Oh, and then remember that search I was talking about earlier? If you literally type in Dropbox, it automatically gives you a select box and you can go directly to that. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to think what I was supposed to show on these. There was like probably about 4 of these files, iterations of like going through like new designs and stuff, some layout exploration stuff, just to give you a bulk of like how many things we did go through. Like typography, like just on our side, we wanted stuff to like scale, and it's difficult to explain now, but we needed to like clean up our stack, and then we wanted our fonts to scale without, not on every single breakpoint, but we wanted it to gradually scale. So we had to go and like figure out like which pattern will be the best. Literally there was in normal media creation would have like 3 breakpoints, and you'd be like, okay, and you know, your 7, 6, 8, you will break, make your font bigger. But what we wanted to like happen was like on every single size, it gradually scales. So that's hence why there's a straight curve here, and here we have like a little bit of a curvature. So there was a lot of things we tried to like solve and then bring into this. And some of it will go into Koza, and some of it will just stay as a nice case study for the design system inside. So yeah, that's to some extent how something's got overcomplicated. Yeah, luckily we dodged a few of those. Yes.
Maybe you want to show the guys like some of the sketch library, like how we set up the different options within certain components.
Cool. Check it this now.
So like from start to here, so where you're on that.
It was a little bit difficult because it was like on and off while we were doing this. So I would say it was about 4 months. When I got to NetBank, we already started like putting some of the parts out. But of course we didn't get a go. Thank you. And also everything was rebuilt from scratch, which they were not opposed to. Unfortunately, Wesley is not here today.
So one of the things we had, the 2 separate sites that Steph was talking about, one was built in a completely different system to the other system for maintainability purposes and all that kind of stuff. We're finally convert stakeholders to merge the 2 sites and go with basically a new tech stack. So not only did we change the front end of this, we also changed the back end and how that whole process works, how workflow works, how people consume this. Yeah, so I'd say we're probably about a 6-month project from start of conceptual work through to release of the first machine.
Well, the foundation was, I would say, about 2 months worth of work. We had designs and stuff for a while, for about 3-4 months, and then it was basically a case of like, well, if we don't start building this, they're never going to approve it. So me and Wes sat and like, we started playing around. We got like a prototype running, and we were like, okay, well, the stuff we're putting in is quite cool. And we focused on things that we know that would draw their attention. It was like small things like, it's simple, but like this progress indicator that we have everywhere. which for some reason is not working now. No, it is working. I'm just impatient. It was stuff like that that we tried to bring forward, and like search wasn't even something that was on the list, but like, you know, we thought like, okay, it would be a cool thing to like get them to like actually buy into everything. So there was a few gimmicks and stuff that we had in there, but at the end of the day, I think most of it came together like in a fairly decent way.
We basically decided as a team to run this as a side project to keep ourselves entertained or like motivated.
Yeah.
And then when stakeholders finally saw it, they were like, okay, we want it next week. So,
yeah, it was literally like, okay, when can you have this live? And like we were just so grateful, so we did tell them like, okay, next Friday. Which we kind of bitched ourselves in the foot, but we actually met the deadline, which was cool. But in all fairness, like the foundation stuff was there. But it also gave us time, it being a side project in a sense, like the things we wanted to do, which wasn't being approved the whole time. Like we just took everything that they told us not to do and took us like a big like hit at it and like did everything, and then it was like either you take the whole thing or you leave it. So yeah.
Stefan, how many people on the core team? Like how many people contributed? Was another bigger team?
I actually have that in the presentation here. So the main design team at the moment is Jock, Wesley, Danielle, Ronnie, and me mostly. When we started, it was, I would say, it was me and Wesley that started working on the side, and then we needed content to be, because the content of course is the important thing there. When we realized that wasn't quite working, we pulled Jock in, and then finally everyone just started getting interested in just more people in. And even the people that weren't in the design team like reached out and like gave a lot of input, and like we actively worked with them as well. I mean, Kim and Palisa especially, like they were there the whole time like criticizing us.
Yeah, and the amazing thing as well is just like Jacques and Joe, who were working on it at the time, had done a lot of work going out to the different squads and different teams to get the documentation together around components and how to use components and where they're used. So there's a lot of legwork in terms of that, not just the front end, but actually going out and getting the relevant information from people. So technically, I mean, we'd say like 80 to 90 people contributed in terms of the thinking behind this. But the design system team at NetBank is about 7 people.
In all fairness, there, like I think the version 1, like the guys did a lot of research and like went out and like tested and like got the foundation of the content together, but there was no real actual hoarding container for the stuff to be consumed in a way that was actually useful. So there was all this work being done, but like because like we were constantly fighting like, oh, like how can we actually present it, or like, are we putting this in the design system, is this like valuable, or like it was a case of like, you know, people were just putting a lot of stuff in there that didn't quite help as well. So it was a case of like looking at and working through a job and saying like, what can we take out? What is not really actually adding value?
Sorry, so are you saying that you didn't work on it, it's from start to finish and not even working on it full time for 6 months?
Yeah. These things look like a lot. The thing that really took time was the content of it.
So the main thing is in terms of the actual code output for components, a lot of that work has been done in version 1. So this project's been running for coming up to 18 months now, but this is the 6th iteration of the site. Initially the mandate was to build everything from scratch, no reusability, don't use anything from the world. We want to own it, we want to design it, we want to build it from scratch. So our first system was literally built in JavaScript, maintained by us, run by us, terribly chunky, hard to maintain, and eventually we moved to other systems to support this at scale. Because when this team started, it wasn't really a mandate from NetBank. It was sort of an internal project that was like, hey, we need this, we believe in this, and let's prove the use case as we go along. So we still don't have 100% buy-in in terms of this. I think we're at a point now where the bank is like, okay, this is amazing, but because there hasn't been the support that's needed, the system looks like it's where it should be, but there's a lot of stuff that isn't there yet. Yeah. So in terms of multiple squads consuming the code base, there's no cloud-based version of this where people can consume that's updatable directly to them from our team. Currently it's like a static zip download where people are like using it in their squads. And we're finally getting buy-in in terms of the tech side from NetBank to build out a fully fledged system behind the system that you see.
I think it would be really great if, not to like add to your work, but because I think this is like one of those foundation things that when you, that every, like even when we go into new clients, like this should be, from a UI perspective, like a UX version of this is also great, but just like the foundation. So the process, how you guys did this, would be great to just like pick that up and like when you move into a new client, just make that more.
So we would
So if you
suggest,
could document that,
we
that'd
would
be great.
suggest try and hide it from your client until it's done. It's the easiest way.
Even documenting your process, how you actually, the key points would be really useful.
So we have discussed, we do a lot of work for our clients, right? And a lot of the work is our clients' work, but a lot of the thinking strategy is our IP. So we do want to take a stab at potentially white labeling a design system from the learnings that we have, but it's quite a time to do that, right, as well. Not just
That is essentially the idea, to bring all of this back into Freethinking so everyone can contribute to it. So like an open source design system.
Yeah, in that way that Claire's talking about, like
Yeah.
knowing that you have access to those resources as you land with clients and stuff, being able to set up, here's what we should use.
And I think in terms of like what we're doing at Freethinking at the moment, which is a new website and things like that, we want to be doing this kind of work internally. So we're applying a lot of this thinking and building out our own system, I think, which we'll then be able to reuse going forward.
So that's some of the strategy stuff that's going on to make space to do that. So it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's fun. Great.
Warren's going to get it done.
So that's the time.
Well, that's the time. If anyone
Let's just cover web. You guys have a universal design system. I mean, like when it comes to Android, iOS, this many kind of
So at the
currently just have one for everything.
Fair question. At the moment, like we're just running the design system. At the design system, it's basically just web. We are currently looking at putting, of course, the foundation for most of this before the design system and all of this was useful. The one thing that was being consumed was the sketch library, and Duan actually bought that entire thing from scratch there. Then running it over, and now we're trying to build one for app, but of course, app is Android and iOS. But I think there's a few things that need to be ironed out before we get there. It is in the making, but like.
So if I can just put that, in terms of design systems, is a system that comprises of many components, right? So the style guide that you see is that style guide. The system that houses that in terms of documentation, rules, the images, and elements, that's the system. Another part of the system would be the code repository where people download web or Angular, whatever it is. But in terms of the visual representation that you see here, the style guide should always be tech agnostic, because your clients can always change their mind in terms of going from Angular to React to .NET to PHP, and if you build your foundation in a core technology, that limits you going forward, you're going to potentially have to rework everything. So in terms of the visual representation of the design, for developers in any language to be able to come and see how something works, how it functions, the documentation around that, should enable them to build out those components in a much faster, more rapid way. Part of the system going forward should be, because NetBank's taking responsible building front-end web in Angular 4, there should be an Angular 4 design team, design system team that build out those Angular 4 components and maintain that, build the documentation and the practices and the standards around that. And then if there's a .NET team or a PHP team, they do the same right. The problem with a system like this for app is completely different to web.
And that is quite, it's not as agnostic.
Like
There is a
app
lot
kind of
of
thing.
app related. Also, we're using quite a bit of native components, so
Yeah.
we need to have the native stuff in
So
there.
if
So
I
you-
bring out
anyway,
a version of this operating system,
Yeah.
you can just use it.
I think that's one part that we still need to discuss is how we actually do it.
Yeah.
One more question, like adoption of this thing, are people, how's the uptake been? I mean, is there like you guys enforcing it, or is it kind of like use it but need it? I mean,
in terms of
from the organization level, are they like behind you?
that's fair. Like, in terms of the sketch library is being consumed, like, I would say 85%. Everyone's using it. It's just how well are they using it.
So developers are using it now.
Yeah.
The business people, do they?
So the developers reference it, they don't really stick to it. So at the moment, we have a lot of process breakdown in clients in terms of how a designer is there, we use it, the developers are offshore, not really controlled and supervised very well. So they'll just grab CSS and build their own components because it's faster.
Yeah.
But then that's everyone else because no one can use those components. So as a small team internally at NetBank, we're trying to enforce this as policy. But I mean, this is kind of like the chicken before the egg. The system was built kind of in the background. At that point now, everyone wants it to be this amazing system, but it's going to take some time. NetBank are building out centers of excellence around this, and they're going to be setting this as sort of the standard and enforcing that, but they don't have those structures in place yet. So that's a bit of a lesson more no at the moment on the tech side.
There is some other stuff we're working on. We're trying to be a little bit sneaky, and the way we're approaching the icons and stuff at the moment is almost thought it was Dave. the way we're approaching the icons at the moment is like they can still carry on like exporting SVGs and stuff separately, adding them in. But if they're going to be following the processes that we put in place, we're going to make their life drastically easier. Yeah. So we're trying to think of a lot of ways to like kind of force people to use it. And it's not like, you know, you can just pick and choose what you want to use. Either you use the whole thing, or you need the same approach we took of like getting this thing live. So I think icons and stuff is pretty close to done. Like, and like that's also a way for us to get people from app on board and allow them or get us to like have a little bit more ownership of that product as well. Because at the end of the day, we need alignment across web, app, everything.
So I mean, ideally, what we would like right now is where the system's at, we would at least like our SaaS partials. We've broken up our code base into basically every component has a sort of SaaS file that compile into a style sheet. We would like that first SaaS partials to live in a node package module that every squad can import with its React. These are quite great access to styles and updates that we make in that second. The problem is there's very, very strict policies around cloud-based solutions at NetBank because of security. We're trying to convince them that CSS is not a security risk. And that's, it's a hard journey to work, but we're slowly getting there. It is frustrating for us as a team because we know what this system can achieve. But it's, we can see a lot of them
the API thing does become difficult. Like, but we try and tell them, like, you know, all of this information and stuff that we have here is like knowledge we've gained, like, and other people is also using this. If they're going to steal anything, it's going to be the brand color, and they can do that by right-clicking on the website and saying inspect it. So actually, there's no IP apart from maybe the user flows where we try and be intricate.
What is your process in relation to getting enhancements into the site? Because I feel like currently it's very difficult to get enhancements or to just improve anything, because no, this is already tested and we are happy with this as it's kind of, and then you guys are we're not moving forward. We're not
Fit. So instance like that is something like tables, for instance, where I worked with John and Stephen and them, where they're like, okay, this is something that's missing, it's not in the design system, but it's also not being documented. We want to make a few changes. There is a table that's kind of working, but we're not happy with it. We would just reach out to the people that are actually using it the most in their product, and we would get their buy-in, and of course then we have someone to test it on. I think sometimes it becomes difficult, but you just make it an open group discussion and try and get everyone to like agree on it, because of course we all like differ on opinions and stuff. I just think the person that is using it the most should have the most say. Like, I think that's kind of the approach we're taking in this. They also have the most knowledge, and they would be the best to actually assist us by doing it as well.
I also think when we think about designing and building technology out at scale, it's really hard to change stuff all the time. Like, there has to be stable state, specifically in a bank. People are expecting financial consistency with a whole like sort of emotional connection to it. The bank's changing all the time and what's going on, and keeping track of which product is in what state of UI can become very tricky. So enhancements, when something's tested and tried and true and put into the design system, I mean, my thinking is that shouldn't really change too often. Because then, again, like I said, like, you're not guaranteed that every squad is getting those updates all the time. And then your consistency across design, across platform can run away. So there needs to be certain policies around how things will change, when they change. why they've changed.
So that's what I was just going to ask. I was going to ask, have you guys given any thought or have you recommended, or I don't know what the right word is, to processes and policies that will facilitate those kind of updates to us in the future? Because that for me is always the biggest thing with these things, like Molly is saying, like once it's tried and tested, it's like very rigid to get something changed, and sometimes you do need a change, or you need an addition, or and I think the governance of this thing, once it's in place, is really, really important.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to also know that understand that the design system style guide in terms of components and the library and that kind of stuff. Not everything in the organization is going to look at me, because not every team is going to reuse those components. So only the mass componentry will live in a system like this. Otherwise, it'll just be too big.
Also, you like don't want to open up, have a component there and then people use it for the wrong.
Yeah,
so that happens a lot as well.
And I also think in terms of, like you're saying, I mean, at Epic there are over 100 designers. We're all creative people. We all want to change stuff. We all want to add our own little bit here and there. But consistency is really important for our clients and for our user and for the organization. And I think as design principle, that should be focused on. So things should be changed with a very, very good reason. If something is broken, or if our users can't get past a certain flow because the platform is green, then we need to make a change. But
at the moment, like we literally just went through all the components and stuff again, and like we're just trying to simplify stuff. Like if it's a complexity being added, changing functionality, we don't really look at it. But there's a lot of other stuff that needs alignment, and it's like small things. I mean, like the problem is you change one component, but that component affects a lot of other components that is built out of that one. So you can't just look at the one thing. Like you need to see how everything affects.
I mean, one of the things that we do try, that we should be pushing more in our squads, I think we have communicated, but I think in terms of the structure that hasn't really that sort of solidified, is if there's a component that's not quite right for your application, create a variant of that component for your use. That doesn't mean that it gets back with the design system. But that obviously needs to go through a process, and like I said, we're implementing teams supporting over 100 designers.
I think there's alignment there in terms of the design communities. They need to sort of talk on the technical bit from that. But an impossibility of saving take precedence. That's just a great process.
I would also say that it's also vastly dependent on one component, because you get ones that are completely side-wide, and then you get the variances. And if you are doing updates to those, they're very team or product specific. So the repercussions aren't as great, because the exposure isn't as great on the inside. You have those aspects that also can help, with regards to the management. The other aspect that I think we should consider when we do white label this is how we approach the adoption in clients. Understanding their ways of working and their processes, as well as team and project structures, because the process part is very difficult to actually change, and if you can incorporate it into your workflow from the get-go, it's a lot easier to get that adoption and a lot quicker to also get that adoption. Which ultimately leads to the success of the project.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we're facing on our client, is because, I mean, the client's very delivery focused. We're shipping products all the time. They're super happy that we're shipping. But we've been shipping for, call it 6, 7, 8 months. And the system's evolved to the point where it is now. But there's already workflow that's been established between those squads. So now it's come retrospectively and tell them, hey, you actually need to start with this. And they're like, well, we've got our own system in place. We don't really need you.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
So it's fantastic to see what you guys have done, and well done to the guys that contributed. To the guys that are at SVG, I know that you guys have had a design system for a longer period, so I'd love to hear from you guys.
If we have design systems for a component library. We currently about to embark on this journey, and I've just joined the design system.
The question there. So the question is there something that you guys may have spotted in what has been shown today that is like a glaring omission, or something that you guys are like, wow, that's really cool, that's something we want to adopt, or whatever it is? Is there anything there? I mean, you guys have had a system going to some extent.
It doesn't need to live. It doesn't need to live on a website.
No, we are literally, we try to be building like a really good milestone. We're trying to build like an MVP almost of what we can do now, just kind of serve the bank.
Okay.
So we do have a website that we've been building up with different components, and it's also web-based, and it's for that web that we were looking at.
Yeah, that's more like code snippets and styles and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not it's part of the design system.
Sure.
It's one of the components.
I feel it's quite a good platform for us to leverage.
Style is anything better than nothing. Yeah.
For me, I feel it's important to use something like that.
Like that's something that a lot of times we need an internal solution until that thing can, which might be not a great thing. It might be just Dropboxes and Confluence and whatever. But that's kind of our MVP for now until we can get to the next step.
So the one thing I did quite like from the Confluence page that they had read was videos, like actual video clips of the experience itself. So not just static stuff and what the component looks like, but how it lives in the real world.
Yeah.
So
it's like if you talk about motion and stuff, you bring in like stuff.
So we have adapted a whole process for animation. We've got a process in place now. Animations are done, SVGs are being prepped, and then we actually have a small example. I think we can show you guys. And this is we actually consuming in app now. So yeah, so we've completely taken on this as an animation library, and this is of course all SVG, so you can go and scale this down and change however you want these.
Also, a lot of those components you can interact with, so you can actually see what the hover state is, what the active state is, so they actually do give you that level of interaction already.
Just explain what you use the Darth Vader image for first.
It's when the bank denies your request. So all the components that Steph was showing earlier was in the design side. So that's just maybe go back to the buttons in the design section. So those are all actual HTML components.
So you kind of got something similar to this, right?
Yeah.
At the moment, it's
And then you'll see at the top, every page, you can switch over to the code view. So just switch over to the code view there. So this is how basically button placement, we tell the person how to use it. Maybe switch over to HTML. So one of the things we've done as a front-end team is really define how we structure our components, how we name our classing, in terms of nesting, stats, all that kind of stuff. So that hopefully all of devs will follow that. They don't. So a lot of work I think is going into that, but going forward, I'm hoping that this will become the standard. So even if they have to go and build their own components, at least they'll stick with the standards.
like a token, like the DSP is called a token.
Yeah.
To simplify all.
If we were allowed to do that point,
Yeah.
Steph, if you go back to the getting started with the developer,
It's the process that's the most difficult thing to actually take.
No.
CSS, outline. So we've gone very high level in terms of like why we've built the styles the way we have. And if you scroll down, we go into granularity detail of how we structure our components and how those can break down. We also attach our media queries to our components rather than to layouts. So that components change when components need to change rather than when the layout changes. So rather than just having global media queries where everything changes at 768, when a component needs to change, it then changes at that size. And then you can see like our SAS structure folder. You can just scroll down there in the SAS folder. You'll see all of our partials, inputs, buttons, they're all very specific to those components. So eventually we would like a product team to only be able to take what they need, right? So reference what they need rather than the whole package.
Then like voice and tone, and can you like how you speak, how you, like the words.
Currently,
is that part of it?
there is we've got a nice like updates coming this week. Currently, writing is underneath here, but we've got a whole new section coming in communication. We'll be explaining how empty states and loading states and all those things are working. We're breaking stuff out of their folders and stuff now. In the beginning we said like, okay, let's keep it simple, let's keep everything underneath components, and now we're like breaking stuff out like into patterns. Where like a stepper is no longer a simple component anymore. It's actually a little bit bigger than that. So we are moving stuff back and forth, but as a foundation, like I was like, before we overcomplicate, let's just get a really nice structure that does not confuse anyone, and then we start hearing like, what is people's thoughts? Where would they think this thing needs to go?
I think one of the main things that from version 1 to version 2, version 2 is very heavy on why we do what we do as netbank. So if we can teach people that, they should be empowered to go and create the work without enforcing them to do the right stuff. If people get the ethos of netbank design, they should be able to do it.
Yeah, just one point of view of all of these. When we're writing documentation, like, don't feel guilty if you sit like 2 weeks and do research and then, yeah, you can get a lot of stuff. But the thing is, like, we tend to like want to put in all our findings in here, and sometimes only 5% of that is valuable.
Yeah, that's the thing. How many people actually read?
Just great bit, because no one is reading it anyway. So
There's big ways to make it single note.
And how specific are you with the rules?
Yeah. Versus guidelines.
People might just tend not to just be like, okay, I don't know.
I'm going to use it how I want.
Yeah.
Probably the fine line of the balance.
Like documentation is one of the hardest things to write, right? You're writing for a vast audience, it needs to be understandable, clear, the English needs to read well, and you can't really use your hands and visuals to show everything, right? So you've got to, that's hard, it's very hard. And especially when you get to technical documentation, I think it's also.
That's all that.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks for that conversation as well, like the debate and the questions and stuff. Like that's kind of the value of this, and that's the magic. And I encourage you to keep having these conversations on our Slack channel with each other, connecting, keep talking, because there's lots of cross-client learning that we can apply. I think we're all starting to face very similar problems now, and we're all in very similar kind of, either in the beginning of something or in the middle of something, or like, you know, Sarah and the team who are kind of post the thing, but now are dealing with what happens once you've ridden a furry tractor. So, you know, so I think that there's lots that we can share, and it doesn't always have to be sensitive client stuff. Sometimes I know the thing that sometimes makes you feel nervous to share is like, oh gosh, but they're at Absa and I'm at Standard Bank, or I'm at NetBank and they're at Liberty or whatever. But you know, there are ways to agnosticize some of the stuff, and like Andrew said, the thinking and the learning and the kind of the research and the process that goes into it is our stuff, and that's the value we have as a design team of having this many designers around to share with. Go, Andrew.
I just want to encourage you guys as well. Like, Slack can be very noisy, but there are great Slack channels that everyone can like apply to be a part of, like design system, communities, all that kind of stuff. They've been very helpful to me.
Amazing.
We use our component library a technology called Fractal. It's been built by an open source community, built by ClearLeft, owned by them, but it's open to everyone. And they've got their own Slack channel, and they're very open to input, suggestions, and helping you set up stuff and get things running.
Andrew, if you could share some of those resources for us on Slack, that would be wonderful. Thanks. And also, Sarah, anything that you found along the way, any kind of useful things, please share with us. Okay, so what we're going to do now, sorry, I should go through, look, and then Stefan came, look, I maybe made like beautiful slides. I felt left out because I wasn't presenting. Okay, so we're going to do our salute to living the values. For those of you who are in the room that haven't joined us before, who have just joined us or have never seen this initiative before, we have our 5 pillar values that we are all very attached to and we love and we all try to see. We have this initiative called Salute to Living Our Values, where I'm going to go through the details of the process, but basically you can nominate other free thinkers around you, not necessarily just at your client, not necessarily just in your squad, for examples or where you found or where you see that they are living the values and they're really exemplifying things that we stand for as free thinking. Nominate them in. There is a prize up for grabs. We share the nominations. It's a really amazing way to just recognize your peers and your colleagues for some of the amazing shit that they do with you all the time. So we had lots of nominations again this month, and some repeat faces, so, you know, overachievers. But we also have a very green looking citation. It's very green, so I want to encourage people who don't go to the green bank to nominate. You know who you are. So just shout out to everyone for you know, really for putting in effort and for being amazing and for flying our flag and for living the values and for being the amazing free thinkers that you are. But I'm gonna, yeah, yes. Maybe should have done a slow clap. That would have been a good slow clap moment. But now we're gonna embarrass some people as we call them up to tell them that they've won some things and share some of their nominations with you and some of the details around that. So yes, I'm going to ask you to come and do this so that I can stay near the slides and do a bit of talking, because that's what I do well. So, without further ado, what went? Remember that thing from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That's what I had in my head. Okay, so who's up first? I don't know. So again, as you can see, flying our flag so high that the client nominated. Oh, yeah. That's how high the flag is. Yeah. You're phenomenal. That's why we love you. Like, you are just such an amazing ball of energy. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Right. Oh no, I don't have them. Hey! Let's see who can. Oh, so let's have a look. I mean, I'm not going to read it to you because you should all be on Instagram following us, right? So you've all seen these nominations and read them in detail. Oh yes, that's your face, girl. So again, guys, clients. Yeah. Flying our flag, super high, guys. There's 4 of the values here. This is amazing. What were you doing with the 5th one, Chana? Well done. Thank you, Palesa. You are such an amazing human. We receive, I mean, so much amazing feedback about everyone. But it's so nice when the client, when you're being so amazing that the client is even getting involved in our internal initiatives and helping recognize you. Like, you got to know how amazing you guys must all be doing. So, like, wow, thank you, everyone. One more, not to be forgotten. Yeah. I don't have to tell you that Mike is an incredible leader. He is someone who strives for deep excellence. He is loved by everyone that works with him at Nedbank, including the client. You are a phenomenal example. Thank you. Thank you to all 3 of you. Hey. Okay, so again, I'm going to just remind you all of how you can participate in some of this cool stuff. So there are vouchers that go up for grabs each time. It's a decent voucher, so it's $1,000, so it can get you something pretty decent. It's $1,000. Don't kill us. I'm going to remind you, please, to nominate. There is no limit on how many times a person can be nominated. There is no limit on how many people can nominate a single human. The more people are nominating the human, the more we know that they're amazing, of course. We are currently still using the open market free thinking. We appreciate that this is kind of a growth process, and so Michelle and Shelley are in the process of putting together a little online form that we'll put on our website. We're hoping to launch that probably at the next convergence that's coming up in November. So it will get easier. Yes. What?
We're not going to launch the website.
Oh no, we're not going to launch the website. No, in fact, that's miles away. We're going to launch the form, and it'll just be a bit easier for you to log on, standardize capture and stuff, you know, UX and all those things. So we'll do that. Reminder to get in by the 20th of the month to be considered for the current month. Everyone is rewarded, no limits, big or small. It doesn't have to be that you're, launched the most amazing thing or came up with the most innovative thing. If it's just someone who took you for coffee when you needed them to, or had, listened when you were ranting, or offered you a small piece of advice, or it can be small and it can be ginormous too. And you can nominate for multiple values, no restrictions. Just do it, guys. It's amazing. That's all I'm going to say more on that. Thank you. But Kelly has parking tickets for those of you who are parked at Michelangelo and don't want to pay for your parking, which I feel is possible. Please go get some tickets. We're going to stay for a round of drinks, own account. But if you're keen to come and hang out with us, let's hang out for a bit.